Sergeant Vincent Roberts never imagined an alien girl would proposition him to be her pet. Yet here he stands, pulse rifle at the ready, guarding a diplomatic summit that's about to implode. The conference room on Nexus 7 space station crackles with tension. Human and Andorian delegates face off across a long table, their forced smiles barely concealing simmering hostility. Vincent's finger hovers near his weapon's trigger, every muscle coiled and ready. An Andorian ambassador slams his fist on the table. Humans are encroaching on our territory. This aggression will not stand. The human ambassador starts to respond, but his words are cut short by a high-pitched whine. Vincent's combat instincts kick in before his conscious mind registers the sound of charging energy weapons. "Get down," he roars, launching himself at the human ambassador. They hit the floor as sapphire bolts of energy sear the air above them. Chaos erupts. Diplomats dive for cover. Security forces on both sides open fire. The acrid smell of ozone fills the air as energy weapons discharge. Vincent rolls to his feet, returning fire at the Andorian attackers. His pulse rifle thrums in his hands, each shot finding its mark with deadly accuracy. But the Andorians keep coming, their blue skins stark against the sterile white of the conference room. Through the haze of weapons fire, Vincent spots a flash of movement behind an overturned table. An Andorian girl cowers there, her antennae quivering in fear. She can't be more than 16 by human standards. Vincent hesitates for a split second. His training screams at him to focus on the threat, to neutralize the enemy. But something in the girl's terrified eyes compels him to act. He sprints toward her, energy bolts sizzling past his ears. Diving the last few feet, Vincent throws himself over the girl, shielding her with his armored body. He feels the impact of several shots against his backplating. "Stay down," he grunts, returning fire over the edge of the table. The firefight seems to last for hours, though in reality it's over in minutes. When the last echoes of weapons fire fade, Vincent surveys the carnage. Bodies of both humans and Andorians litter the floor. Emergency klaxons blare as the station's security protocols engage. Vincent turns to the Andorian girl. "Are you hurt?" She shakes her head, antennae twitching. "I'm Vita. You saved me. Why?" Before Vincent can answer, heavy blast doors slam shut, sealing off their section of the station. They're trapped. Vita's eyes widen. "My father sent me here to sabotage the talks. He believes war with humans will make our race stronger, but I've seen enough death today to last a lifetime." Vincent's grip tightens on his rifle. "You're telling me this why?" "Because I want to stop this war before it starts," Vita says, her voice gaining strength. "And you're the key." "Me? How?" Vita takes a deep breath. "Become my pet." Vincent blinks, sure he's misheard. "Your what?" "My pet. It's a position in Andorian society. You'd have diplomatic immunity, access to our highest circles. You could gather intelligence, influence decisions, help prevent full-scale war." Vincent's mind reels. This has to be a trick, a ploy to capture him. And yet, if there's even a chance she's telling the truth. Shouts echo from beyond the blast doors. Security forces are coming. Time is running out. Vincent looks at Vita, then at the bodies strewn across the floor. Countless more will die if war breaks out. He has a duty as a soldier, but also as a human being. "What exactly would being your pet entail?" he asks, decision crystallizing in his mind. Vita's antennae perk up with hope. "So you'll consider it?" The sound of cutting torches grows louder. Vincent nods grimly. "I'm listening." Vincent's mind raced as he processed Vita's proposal. The weight of responsibility pressed down on him, but the potential to prevent countless deaths outweighed his reservations. "All right," he said, his voice barely audible over the blaring alarms. "I'll do it, but we need to get out of here first." Vita nodded, her antennae twitching with nervous energy. "There's a maintenance access panel behind that storage unit. It leads to the service corridors." Vincent moved swiftly, pushing the heavy storage unit aside with a grunt. He pried open the panel, revealing a dark, cramped tunnel beyond. "Ladies first," he said, gesturing for Vita to enter. As they crawled through the narrow passage, the sounds of the security teams grew fainter. The acrid smell of ozone gave way to the musty odor of rarely used maintenance shafts. Vincent's armor scraped against the metal walls, the sound echoing ominously in the confined space. "Take the next left," Vita whispered, her voice tight with tension. "It should lead us to a junction near the docking bay." Vincent nodded, though he doubted she could see the gesture in the darkness. As they emerged into a slightly larger corridor, he activated his helmet's night vision, bathing the world in an eerie green glow. "Hold up," he said, raising a hand. The sound of footsteps echoed from around the corner. Vincent pressed himself against the wall, motioning for Vita to do the same. A group of Andorian soldiers appeared, their blue skins stark against the darkness. Vincent's muscles tensed, ready for action. As the first soldier rounded the corner, Vincent struck. His fist connected with the Andorian's solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs. In one fluid motion, Vincent disarmed him, using the soldier's own momentum to throw him into his comrades. The narrow corridor worked to Vincent's advantage, preventing the Andorians from bringing their superior numbers to bear. Vincent moved with practiced efficiency, his strikes precise and controlled. He targeted joints and pressure points, incapacitating without killing. Within moments, the Andorian squad lay groaning on the floor, their weapons scattered uselessly around them. Vita stared at Vincent, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and admiration. You didn't kill them." Vincent shook his head as he collected the fallen weapons. "Unnecessary casualties only breed more conflict. Come on, we need to move." They pressed on, navigating the labyrinthine corridors of Nexus 7. As they approached the docking bay, voices drifted from an open doorway. Vincent held up a hand, signaling Vita to stop. "Weapon will be ready within the month," a gruff Andorian voice said. "The human colonies won't stand a chance." Vincent's blood ran cold. He exchanged a glance with Vita, whose antennae drooped with dismay. "We have to stop this," she whispered. Vincent nodded grimly. "First, we need to get off this station. There's an Andorian shuttle in Bay 3. Think you can get us access?" Vita's antennae perked up. "Leave it to me." They slipped into the docking bay, keeping to the shadows. Vita worked quickly, her fingers dancing over the shuttle's access panel. The airlock hissed open just as alarms began to blare. "They've discovered us," Vincent said, ushering Vita inside. "I'll pilot. You handle communications and defense systems." The shuttle's engines roared to life as Vincent's hands flew over the controls. The docking clamps released, and they shot out into space. Almost immediately, warning klaxons sounded. 2 human fighters and an Andorian cruiser on intercept course, Vita reported, her voice tight with tension. Vincent's heart made as he threw the shuttle into a series of evasive maneuvers. Energy bolts sizzled past, narrowly missing their hull. He dove and weaved, using the station's superstructure for cover. "Divert power from life support to engines," he ordered. "We need every ounce of speed we can get." The pursuing ships fell behind as Vincent pushed the shuttle to its limits. But their victory was short-lived. A stray shot clipped their starboard engine, sending them spinning out of control. "We're losing power," Vita shouted over the blaring alarms. "We can't stay in space." Vincent scanned the nav system, looking for options. "There's a planet nearby, uninhabited. We'll have to risk a landing." The shuttle shuddered as it entered the planet's atmosphere, the hull glowing red-hot from the friction. Vincent fought the controls, trying to slow their descent. They skimmed over an alien forest, branches whipping against the viewport. With a bone-jarring impact, the shuttle plowed into the ground, carving a deep furrow in the alien soil before coming to rest at the edge of a cliff. For a long moment, the only sound was the hiss of cooling metal and the distant cry of alien wildlife. Vincent groaned, shaking his head to clear it. "Vita, you all right?" A weak voice answered from the rear of the shuttle. "I'm okay, just shaken." As the adrenaline of their escape faded, the reality of their situation set in. They were stranded on an alien world, hunted by both their peoples, with the fate of 2 species resting on their shoulders. Vincent took a deep breath, pushing aside his doubts and fears. They had work to do. "Let's assess the damage," he said, helping Vita to her feet. "We need to get this shuttle operational again. But first, we secure our perimeter and find basic supplies: water, food, shelter. We take this one step at a time. Vita nodded, her antennae drooping with exhaustion, but her eyes bright with drive. As they stepped out onto the alien soil, the unfamiliar sun beating down on them, Vincent couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. As the alien sun beat down on them, Vincent and Vita surveyed their surroundings. The shuttle had carved a deep furrow in the soil, leaving a trail of twisted metal and scorched earth behind it. The cliff's edge loomed dangerously close, a stark reminder of how narrowly they had avoided plummeting to their doom. "First things first," Vincent said, his military training kicking in. "We need to secure the area and find supplies. There might be predators or other dangers we're not aware of." Vita nodded, her antennae twitching as she scanned the alien landscape. "I can use the shuttle's sensors to scan for nearby water sources and edible vegetation." They worked efficiently, falling into a rhythm born of necessity. Vincent scouted the perimeter, using debris from the crash to create makeshift barriers and alarms. Vita jury-rigged the shuttle systems, coaxing valuable data from the damaged equipment. As the planet's strange violet-tinged twilight fell, they huddled in the relative safety of the shuttle's cabin. Vincent studied a rough map Vita had managed to generate. "There's a structure about 2 kilometers north," he said, pointing to a blip on the crudely rendered image. "Could be a research facility or an outpost. Might have supplies we can use to repair the shuttle." Vita's antennae drooped slightly. "And if it's occupied?" Vincent's hand unconsciously tightened on his pulse rifle. "Then we deal with that when we come to it." The next few days passed in a blur of activity. They hiked to the abandoned research facility, scavenging parts and supplies. The work was grueling, but it gave them a shared purpose, a focus beyond the dire circumstances that had brought them together. During breaks, Vincent found himself teaching Vita basic hand-to-hand combat techniques. Her lithe Andorian physiology made her a quick study, and soon she was executing throws and blocks with surprising grace. "Your turn to teach me something," Vincent said one evening, massaging a sore shoulder where Vita had managed to flip him. Vita's antennae perked up with interest. "Have you ever practiced Andorian meditation? It can greatly enhance mental focus and situational awareness." Vincent raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Show me." As Vita guided him through the unfamiliar mental exercises, Vincent found his racing thoughts settling. The constant tactical calculations and threat assessments that had become second nature faded to a low hum, leaving his mind clear and alert. On the 5th day, as they prepared for another parts run to the facility, Vita made a startling discovery. "Vincent, look at this," she called, gesturing to the shuttle's sensor display. "There's a hidden structure beneath the research facility. Some kind of bunker, I think." Vincent frowned, studying the readout. "Could be where they kept their most sensitive projects. We should check it out." They approached the bunker cautiously, Vincent taking point with his pulse rifle at the ready. The entrance was well concealed, but Vita's keen Andorian senses picked up on subtle signs of recent use. Inside, they found a treasure trove of information. Encrypted data drives lined the walls, and in the center of the room stood a series of strange devices. "These look like weapon prototypes," Vincent said, examining one of the sleek alien designs. "But I've never seen anything like them." Vita's antenna twitched rapidly as she scanned through the data on a nearby console. "Vincent, this is big. These weapons, they're designed to exploit weaknesses in both human and Andorian physiology, and there's more here about the conspiracy behind our conflict." A cold weight settled in Vincent's stomach. "We need to get this information out. It could prevent full-scale war." As Vita downloaded the data, a high-pitched whine filled the air. Red lights began flashing along the walls. "It's a security system," Vita shouted over the noise. "We've triggered some kind of alert." Vincent grabbed the prototype weapons and as many data drives as he could carry. "Time to go. Now." They sprinted back to the shuttle, the sound of distant engines growing louder with each passing second. As Vincent fired up the engines, Vita's hands flew over the sensor controls. "Multiple ships incoming," she reported, her voice tight with tension. "Looks like a joint human-Andorian task force." Vincent gritted his teeth as he guided the shuttle into a steep climb. "Hold on tight, this is going to get rough." The shuttle broke atmosphere just as the first patrol ships appeared on their tail. Energy bolts sizzled past them, uncomfortably close. "There's an asteroid field ahead," Vita called out. "If we can make it there, we might lose them." Vincent nodded grimly, pushing the shuttle's engines to their limit. As they entered the field, he weaved between massive chunks of space rock with a precision that left Vita breathless. "I'm jamming their communications and targeting systems," she said, fingers dancing over the controls. "It won't last long, but it should give us an edge." A sudden impact rocked the shuttle, throwing them both forward in their seats. Warning klaxons blared as a red light flashed on the control panel. "Hull breach in the aft section," Vincent barked. "I'm sealing it off." He moved swiftly to the rear of the shuttle, working to close the emergency bulkhead. But before he could fully seal it, a violent decompression sucked him toward the breach. For a heart-stopping moment, Vincent felt the icy void of space against his skin. Then the bulkhead slammed shut and he collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. "Vincent!" Vita was at his side in an instant, her cool blue hands checking him for injuries. She grabbed a medkit from the wall, her movements quick and efficient as she administered a hypospray. "Andorian vasodilators," she explained, her voice shaking slightly. "They should help counteract the effects of vacuum exposure." As Vita worked to stabilize him, Vincent's mind raced. They had the evidence they needed, but now they were being hunted by both their peoples. Where could they possibly go from here? A transmission crackled over the shuttle's comm system, cutting through his thoughts. A deep, authoritative voice filled the cabin. "Vita, this is Admiral Jor. Return to Andorian space immediately or face the consequences. If you continue to harbor this human, his homeworld will pay the price." Vincent and Vita exchanged a look of shared grit. They had come too far to give up now. The fate of both their species hung in the balance, and they were the only ones who could prevent catastrophe. As Vita cut the transmission, Vincent struggled to his feet, his mind already formulating their next move. They needed allies, someone powerful enough to stand up to both human and Andorian forces, and he knew just who might fit the bill. "Set course for Jirac space," he said, his voice hoarse but resolute. "It's time to call in the ultimate neutral party." Vincent's words hung in the air as they plotted their course to Jirac space. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, carrying them deeper into the uncharted regions of the galaxy. As they traveled, Vincent's condition gradually improved thanks to Vita's quick thinking and the Andorian vasodilators. Days passed in tense silence, broken only by the occasional beep of the navigation system. As they approached the outer reaches of Jirac's territory, a massive structure loomed before them, its gleaming surface reflecting the light of nearby stars. "That must be it," Vincent said, his voice a mix of awe and apprehension. "The space station in the Crimson Nebula." Vita nodded, her antennae twitching nervously. "I've heard rumors about this place. They say it holds secrets from civilizations long extinct." As they approached, a tractor beam engulfed their shuttle, guiding it smoothly into a cavernous docking bay. The moment their vessel touched down, Vincent and Vita exchanged a determined look. They armed themselves with the prototype weapons they had salvaged and cautiously made their way to the airlock. The station's atmosphere hit them as soon as they stepped out, a perfect balance of temperature and humidity that seemed to cater to a wide range of species. The air carried a faint scent of ozone and something undefinably alien. Vincent took point, his pulse rifle at the ready, while Vita covered their rear. They moved silently through sleek metallic corridors that seemed to stretch endlessly in every direction. The walls pulsed with soft, ambient light that adjusted to their presence. Suddenly, a melodious voice filled the air around them. "Welcome, travelers. I am the curator. Your presence here is most intriguing." Vincent and Vita froze, weapons raised, scanning for the source of the voice. "There is no need for hostility," the voice continued. "I am the artificial intelligence that maintains this archive. Your unique pairing, human and Andorian, has piqued my interest. I offer you temporary access to our resources." Vita's antenna twitched rapidly. "Can we trust it?" she whispered to Vincent. He lowered his weapon slightly. "Do we have a choice? We need answers, and this might be our best shot at getting them." As if in response to their acceptance, a holographic interface materialized before them, displaying a map of the station. A pulsing light indicated their current location, and another highlighted a path leading deeper into the structure. Follow the indicated route, the curator instructed. You will find the information you seek in the central archive chamber. They proceeded cautiously, marveling at the sheer scale and complexity of the station. Every surface seemed alive with data, holographic displays flickering to life as they passed, offering glimpses into long-lost worlds and forgotten technologies. The central chamber was a vast, circular room with a domed ceiling that seemed to mirror the galaxy itself. In the center stood a pillar of light, pulsing with information. Approach the data core, the curator urged. Focus your thoughts on the information you seek, and it will be revealed to you. Vincent and Vida stepped forward, their minds racing with questions about the conflict between their peoples. As they neared the pillar, images and data streams began to coalesce around them. What they saw left them reeling. The conspiracy behind the human-Andorian conflict was far more insidious than they had imagined. A shadowy organization known as the Galactic Syndicate had been manipulating both species for decades, orchestrating tensions and profiting from the resulting arms race. "This can't be," Vida gasped, her antennae drooping in shock. "My father, he's been an unwitting pawn in their game." Vincent's expression resolute as he absorbed the information. "They've been playing both sides, weakening us for some future invasion. We have to stop them." As they delved deeper into the archives, the strain of the past few days caught up with Vincent. His injuries from the near-vacuum exposure flared up, causing him to stumble. "Vincent!" Vida caught him before he could fall, concern etched on her features. "Curator, is there a medical facility on this station?" "Indeed there is," the AI responded. "Follow the path I've illuminated. You will find advanced healing technologies at your disposal." In the medical bay, Vincent lay on a diagnostic bed as beams of light scanned his body. Vida stood nearby, her cool blue hand resting on his arm, a gesture of comfort that felt surprisingly natural to them both. "Your physiology is fascinating," the curator commented as it administered treatment. "The bond between you two, it defies the traditional paradigms of your respective cultures." Vincent and Vida exchanged a look, suddenly aware of how far they'd come from their initial pet arrangement. There was something deeper growing between them, a connection forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal. As Vincent recovered, they spent days poring over the archive's vast database, identifying key syndicate operatives embedded within both human and Andorian governments. The curator provided them with advanced cloaking technology and encryption methods to aid their mission. Just as they were preparing to leave, alarms blared throughout the station. The curator's voice rang out, tinged with urgency. "A syndicate fleet approaches. They appear to be tracking the energy signatures of your prototype weapons." Vincent and Vida shared a grim look. They knew what had to be done. "We need to split up," Vincent said, his voice heavy with dedication. "I'll return to Earth, present the evidence to our leaders. You need to go to Andoria, confront your father with the truth." Vida nodded, her antennae quivering with a mix of grit and something else, an emotion she wasn't quite ready to name. "It's the only way to warn both our peoples in time." As they prepared for their separate missions, the curator presented them with a final gift, a pair of advanced communication devices. These will allow you to stay in contact across vast distances, bypassing conventional channels the syndicate might monitor. Vincent and Vida stood at the threshold of their respective ships. Vincent in their repaired shuttle, Vida in a sleek Andorian scout ship from the station's hangar. Both vessels had been modified with the archive's cloaking technology. "We'll meet at these coordinates," Vincent said, transmitting the location of a hidden sanctuary world the curator had provided. "Once we've completed our tasks." Vida nodded, her antennae betraying her inner turmoil. "Vincent, He stepped closer, bridging the gap between them. For a moment they stood there, blue skin against pale, their breath mingling in the recycled air of the hangar. "I know," Vincent said softly. "We'll finish this. Together." As they parted ways, the weight of their mission settled heavily upon them. They carried not only the fate of their species, but the hope for a new understanding between humans and Andorians. The curator's voice echoed through the hangar as their ships prepared for launch. "I have activated a series of beacons throughout the Crimson Nebula. They will broadcast a coded warning about the Syndicate's activities, potentially rallying support for your cause. With a final look at each other, Vincent and Vita launched their ships, cloaking devices engaged as they merged with the starry expanse of space. Their paths diverged, but their destinies remained intertwined, bound by a shared purpose and a connection that defied the boundaries of their worlds. As they disappeared into the void, the curator's words lingered in their minds, a reminder of the challenges that lay ahead and the potential for change their unlikely alliance represented. As their ships vanished into the vastness of space, Vincent and Vita steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. Vincent's journey back to Earth proved treacherous from the outset. He navigated through asteroid fields and narrowly avoided detection by Syndicate patrols, relying heavily on the advanced cloaking technology provided by the curator. After several nerve-wracking days, Vincent finally entered Earth's solar system. He transmitted a coded message to Admiral Sarah Thompson, requesting an immediate covert meeting. As he maneuvered his shuttle towards a hidden orbital facility, Vincent's heart raced with anticipation and dread. Admiral Thompson, a stern-faced woman with salt and pepper hair, met Vincent in a secure debriefing room. Her eyes widened as he presented the evidence of the Galactic Syndicate's manipulation. This is beyond anything we could have imagined, she muttered, poring over the data. The depth of their infiltration, the scale of their plans. We've been played for fools. Vincent nodded grimly. It gets worse, Admiral. The Syndicate's been doing the same to the Andorians. They're pushing us towards a war that will weaken both our species. Meanwhile, light years away, Vita's sleek Andorian scout ship slipped undetected into her homeworld's atmosphere. She landed at a private family compound, her antenna twitching with nervous energy as she made her way to her father's study. Admiral Zor, a towering Andorian with piercing eyes, rose from his desk as Vita entered. Daughter, you returned to us at last. I trust you've come to your senses regarding that human... Vita cut him off, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. Father, what I'm about to tell you will change everything we thought we knew about our conflict with the humans. She activated a holographic display, flooding the room with images and data streams from the archive station. Admiral Zor's expression shifted from skepticism to shock as Vita laid out the evidence of the Syndicate's machinations. This cannot be, he whispered, his antennae drooping in dismay. The implications... Before Vita could respond, an explosion rocked the compound. Alarms blared as Andorian security forces scrambled to respond. Through the window, Vita caught sight of a group of armed rebels advancing on the building. Syndicate agents, she hissed, drawing her weapon. They must have followed me here. Admiral Zor quickly accessed a hidden panel, revealing a cache of advanced weaponry. It seems your human friend's influence has made you prescient, daughter. Come, we must reach the command center. As they fought their way through the compound, Vita's communication device chimed. Vincent's voice came through, tense and urgent. Vita, we've got trouble. The Syndicate just tried to take me out. They've got people inside Earth defense. Vita ducked behind a pillar as energy blasts scorched the air around her. Same here. We're under attack. The Syndicate's making its move. Their conversation was cut short as both faced immediate threats. Vincent found himself in a firefight within the orbital facility, forced to use every bit of his training to stay alive. On Andoria, Vita and her father rallied loyal forces to push back against the rebel assault. As the battles raged, reports flooded in from across both territories. Syndicate forces had launched coordinated attacks on human and Andorian colonies, sowing chaos and confusion. Military commands on both sides initially blamed the other species, pushing them closer to all-out war. Vincent, having secured Admiral Thompson's support, worked frantically to contact other high-ranking Earth officials. We need to reach out to the Andorians, he insisted. If we don't unite against the real threat, we're playing right into the Syndicate's hands. Vita, meanwhile, found herself in a heated debate with the Andorian High Command. The humans are not behind these attacks, she argued, her antennae quivering with intensity. We have a common enemy, one that's been manipulating us for decades. As tensions reached a fever pitch, the curator's voice suddenly came through on both Vincent and Vita's communication devices. Warning! A massive Syndicate fleet has been detected at the edge of the Crimson Nebula. Their weapon systems match the energy signatures of the prototypes from your research facility. They pose an extinction-level threat to both human and Andorian civilizations. The news hit Vincent and Vita like a physical blow. They knew they had to act fast to prevent catastrophe. In a moment of shared grit, they made a bold decision. "We need a neutral ground," Vincent said, his mind racing. "Somewhere both sides can meet without fear of ambush." Vita's antenna perked up as realization struck. Nexus 7, where this all began. It's perfect. Working through their respective channels, Vincent and Vita arranged for an emergency summit aboard Nexus 7. As delegates from both species began to converge on the station, hope flickered amidst the chaos. But the Galactic Syndicate was far from defeated. As the summit preparations reached their final stages, a fleet of sleek, dark ships appeared on Nexus 7's long-range scanners. The Syndicate had launched a daring attack on the station itself, intent on crushing any chance of an alliance between humans and Andorians. Vincent and Vita found themselves once again at the heart of the conflict, their fates intertwined as they fought to protect the delegates and preserve the fragile hope for peace. As energy blasts rocked the station and boarding parties breached its outer defenses, they exchanged a look of fierce drive. "Just like old times," Vincent said, a grim smile playing at his lips as he checked his weapon. Vita's antennae twitched in agreement, her blue skin shimmering under the station's pulsing emergency lights. "Let's finish this. Together." They moved as one, years of training and months of shared struggle allowing them to anticipate each other's moves. As they raced towards the main conference chamber, the sounds of battle echoed through Nexus 7's corridors, a stark reminder of how much hung in the balance. Balance. The fate of two civilizations hung in the balance as Vincent and Vita rushed towards the main conference chamber. As they rounded the final corner, they came face to face with a squad of Syndicate soldiers. Energy blasts scorched the air, forcing them to take cover behind a bulkhead. Vincent leaned out, firing precise shots that dropped two attackers. Vita's antennae twitched as she detected movement from behind. "Vincent, duck!" she shouted, spinning around and unleashing a barrage from her own weapon. 3 more Syndicate operatives fell, their stealth field generators flickering and dying. They pressed on, fighting their way through waves of enemies. Vincent's Earth Force training complemented Vita's Andorian combat techniques perfectly. They moved as one, covering each other's blind spots and anticipating each other's needs without a word. As they neared the conference chamber, a deafening shriek filled the air. Vincent stumbled, his hands clawing at his ears. Vita's antennae went rigid, her blue skin paling as she fought to stay upright. "Neural disruptor," she gasped, recognizing the Syndicate's newest weapon. "It's affecting both of us." Through blurring vision, Vincent saw humans and Andorians alike collapsing in the corridors. He gritted his teeth, fighting against the searing pain in his skull. "We need to shut it down." Vita nodded, her fingers flying over her comm device. "The curator's schematics show the control room 2 levels up. We have to hurry before it incapacitates everyone on the station." They staggered forward, supporting each other as they made their way to a maintenance shaft. The climb was agonizing, each movement sending fresh waves of pain through their bodies. As they reached the upper level, a group of Syndicate troops in protective gear spotted them. Vincent pushed Vita behind him as energy bolts sizzled past. He returned fire, his aim wavering under the neural disruptor's influence. A blast caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. He crashed to the ground, his vision swimming. "Vincent!" Vita cried out, dragging him behind cover. Her hands moved swiftly, applying a compress from her medkit to the wound. "Stay with me. We're almost there." He nodded weakly, forcing himself to focus. "I'm okay. We can't stop now." They pressed on, fighting through the pain and disorientation. As they approached the control room, a familiar voice rang out. "Well, well, the pet and his Andorian master. How touching." Dr. Xander Voss stood before them, flanked by elite Syndicate guards. The human scientist's eyes gleamed with malice as he gestured to the neural disruptor's control panel. "You're too late," Voss sneered. "Soon, both your pathetic species will be at our mercy." Vincent's grip tightened on his weapon. "Why, Xander? You're human. How could you betray your own people?" Voss laughed, a cold, harsh sound. Humanity is weak, clinging to outdated notions of morality and cooperation. The syndicate represents true progress, unhindered by such foolish sentiments. Vita's antennae quivered with anger. You're wrong. Our alliance proves that we're stronger together. Touching, Voss mocked, but ultimately futile. He signaled his guards, and chaos erupted. Vincent and Vita moved in perfect synchronization, years of training and months of shared struggle, allowing them to anticipate each other's actions. They wove through the hail of energy blasts, taking down syndicate operatives with precision and teamwork. As the last guard fell, Voss snarled and lunged for the control panel. Vincent tackled him, the two humans grappling on the floor. Vita raced to the neural disruptor controls, her fingers flying over the alien interface. It's tied into the station's power grid, she called out. I need time to safely shut it down. Vincent nodded, struggling to keep Voss pinned. The scientist's eyes blazed with hatred as he fought back. You can't stop us, he hissed. The syndicate will prevail. A swift strike to the jaw silenced Voss temporarily. Vincent secured the traitor's hands behind his back, using cord from his utility belt to bind him. He moved to join Vita at the control panel, his expertise in Earth technology complementing her Andorian knowledge. Alarms blared as Voss regained consciousness. You're too late, he crowed. I've activated the self-destruct sequence. Either you let me go with the syndicate data, or this entire station burns. Vincent and Vita exchanged a look of fierce determination. Go, Vita said. Stop him. I'll handle this. Without hesitation, Vincent sprinted after Voss, who had slipped his bonds and was making a break for the docking bay. The human traitor was fast, but Vincent's willpower was stronger. He pushed through the pain of his injuries, gaining ground with each stride. Meanwhile, Vita's fingers danced over the control panel, her antennae twitching as she processed the complex systems. The curator's voice crackled over her comm device, providing guidance and support. With seconds to spare, she managed to isolate the neural disruptor from the station's power grid and shut it down. In the docking bay, Vincent cornered Voss as the scientist attempted to board an escape pod. It's over, Xander, he said, leveling his weapon. Surrender the data and come quietly. Voss sneered, raising his hand slowly. You think this changes anything? The syndicate is everywhere. You'll never truly defeat us. As Vincent moved to apprehend him, Voss made a desperate lunge. Vincent sidestepped, using the scientist's momentum against him. A swift strike to the back of the head, and Voss crumpled to the ground, unconscious. With the immediate threat neutralized, Vincent secured the syndicate data and returned to the conference chamber. He found Vita there, surrounded by grateful human and Andorian delegates. The neural disruptor's effects were fading, and a sense of cautious optimism filled the air. Admiral Thompson approached, her expression a mix of pride and concern. Well done, both of you. You've given us a fighting chance. Before Vincent could respond, the curator's voice echoed through the station's speakers. Warning! A massive syndicate fleet has been detected approaching the sector. Their weapon systems match the energy signatures of the prototype weapons from your research facility. Vincent and Vita exchanged a glance, knowing their greatest challenge still lay ahead. As the human and Andorian leaders began to strategize, Vincent felt Vita's hand slip into his. In that moment, despite the looming threat, he knew that together they could face whatever came next. The urgency of the moment left no time for celebration. As soon as the curator's warning faded, Vincent and Vita sprang into action. They quickly gathered the human and Andorian leaders, presenting a united front against the looming syndicate threat. Admiral Thompson nodded at the pair. You two have proven yourselves time and again. I'm naming you co-leaders of our joint task force. We need your expertise now more than ever. Vincent and Vita exchanged a brief glance, their expressions a mix of grit and drive. They knew the weight of responsibility that now rested on their shoulders. We accept, Vita said, her antenna twitching with anticipation. But we'll need to act fast. The syndicate fleet is approaching a heavily populated sector. Vincent pulled up a holographic display of the sector, highlighting key strategic points. We should mobilize our combined fleets immediately. If we can intercept them before they reach the populated worlds, we might have a chance. As the newly formed Human-Andorian Alliance scrambled to prepare their defenses, Vincent and Vita worked tirelessly to coordinate their efforts. The Curator's advanced technology proved invaluable, allowing them to develop countermeasures against the Syndicate's neural disruptor weapons. Hours later, the Allied fleet hung in the void of space, a mix of sleek Earth Force vessels and angular Andorian warships. Vincent stood on the bridge of the command ship, his eyes fixed on the tactical display. Beside him, Vita's antennae quivered as she processed incoming data streams. Syndicate fleet dropping out of FTL, a sensor officer announced. Multiple signatures detected. The void erupted with light as the Syndicate armada materialized. Their ships were dark, predatory shapes that seemed to absorb the starlight around them. Energy weapons flared to life, and the battle began in earnest. Vincent turned to Vita, his expression grim. "It's time. I'm taking the strike team to their flagship." Vita nodded, her hand briefly squeezing his. "Be careful. I'll coordinate the battle from here." As Vincent made his way to the hangar bay, Vita's voice filled the command ship. "All ships, engage as planned. Remember your training and trust in each other. Today, we fight as one." Vincent's shuttle launched, flanked by a mixed squadron of human and Andorian fighters. As they approached the Syndicate flagship, energy blasts erupted around them. Vincent gritted his teeth, his hands steady on the controls as he weaved through the barrage. "Strike team, prepare for boarding," he called out, eyeing the looming bulk of the enemy vessel. "Remember, our primary objective is to locate and disable their shield generator." The shuttle shuddered as it breached the flagship's hangar bay force field. Before the Syndicate troops could react, Vincent's team was on the move. Humans and Andorians fought side by side, their diverse combat styles blending seamlessly as they pushed deeper into the ship. Back on the command ship, Vita's antenna twitched as she processed the ebb and flow of the battle. Her intimate knowledge of both human and Andorian tactics allowed her to maximize their effectiveness, coordinating complex maneuvers that kept the Syndicate forces off balance. "Admiral," a communications officer called out, "we're detecting some kind of energy shield around the Syndicate ships. Our weapons are barely making a dent." Vita's mind raced, quickly analyzing the data. "It must be a new type of defense system. We need to adjust our strategy. All ships focus fire on their shield generators. We need to create weak points for our strike team to exploit." As the space battle raged on, Vincent led his team through the twisting corridors of the Syndicate flagship. They encountered fierce resistance at every turn, but the human Andorian squad worked in perfect unison. An Andorian warrior deflected an energy blast with his ice blade, allowing a human sniper to take out the attacker. Vincent himself moved with fluid grace, combining Earth Force combat techniques with the Andorian fighting style Vita had taught him. "We're approaching the shield generator," Vincent reported, his breath coming in the short bursts as they fought off another wave of Syndicate troops. "Prepare breaching charges." Just as they reached the generator room, a high-ranking Syndicate officer stepped out to confront them. Vincent's eyes widened in recognition. "Commander Reeves," he gasped, lowering his weapon slightly. "But you were with Earth Defense Force. How could you betray us?" Reeves sneered, his once familiar face twisted with contempt. "Betray? I've embraced true power, Vincent. The Syndicate offers more than your precious alliance ever could." Without warning, Reeves lunged forward, engaging Vincent in hand-to-hand combat. The two men grappled fiercely, their fight a brutal dance that symbolized the larger conflict raging around them. As Vincent battled his former commander, Vita faced a crisis of her own on the command ship. A junior officer burst onto the bridge, his face pale with shock. "Admiral, we've discovered a Syndicate saboteur attempting to upload a virus into our systems." Vita's antennae went rigid. "Isolate that terminal immediately. I need a full system scan and trace the virus's origin." Her fingers flew over the control panel, mind racing as she worked to contain the threat. As she delved deeper into the code, a chilling realization dawned on her. "This isn't just a random attack," she muttered. "It's part of a larger network. We have Syndicate sympathizers within our own ranks." As Vita worked to root out the traitors, Vincent's fight with Reeves reached its climax. With a series of lightning-fast moves that blended human and Andorian techniques, Vincent managed to outmaneuver his opponent. A final decisive strike sent Reeves crashing to the ground, unconscious. Panting heavily, Vincent turned to the shield generator's control panel. "This ends now," he growled, fingers flying over the alien interface. The moment the shields fell, the tide of the space battle shifted dramatically. Vita's coordinated assault began to break through the Syndicate's defenses, their ships erupting in flames as Allied weapons found their mark. But even as victory seemed within reach, Vita made a horrifying discovery. Hidden within the data stolen from the saboteur was evidence of the Syndicate's true endgame, a superweapon capable of simultaneously destroying key human and Andorian worlds. "Vincent," she called out over the comm channel, her voice tight with urgency. "We've won this battle, but the war isn't over. The Syndicate has a superweapon hidden in this sector. We need to find it before it's too late." As the Syndicate fleet crumbled around them, Vincent and his team fought their way back to the hangar bay. They commandeered a Syndicate shuttle, escaping just as the flagship erupted in a massive explosion. Reunited aboard Vita's command ship, Vincent and Vita shared a brief, fierce embrace. Their joy at seeing each other was tempered by the knowledge of the challenge that still lay ahead. "What's our next move?" Vincent asked, his eyes meeting Vita's. Vita's antenna twitched thoughtfully. "We need to locate that superweapon. And fast. I've already ordered a portion of the fleet to begin the search." Vincent nodded, his mind already formulating plans. "We'll need to infiltrate whatever facility is housing it. This won't be easy." "No," Vita agreed, her hand finding his. "But we'll face it together, like we always do." As the command ship turned to join the search, Vincent and Vita stood side by side, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. The battle was won, but the final test of the human-Andorian alliance was just beginning. The urgency of their mission left no room for celebration or rest. Vincent and Vita quickly gathered their team and boarded a stealth transport, their destination set for the remote, tidally locked planet where intelligence suggested the Syndicate's superweapon was hidden. As they approached the planet's orbit, the ship's sensors lit up with warnings. Vincent's hands flew over the controls, his eyes narrowed in concentration. "Cloaked minefield dead ahead," he announced, his voice tight. "Vita, I need your eyes on this." Vita's antennae twitched as she processed the incoming data streams. Adjusting sensor algorithms to compensate for the cloaking technology, "Vincent, course correction in 3, 2, 1? The ship banked hard, barely missing a cluster of mines. Vincent's expert piloting, combined with Vita's real-time analysis, allowed them to weave through the treacherous defenses. The tension on the bridge was palpable, each near miss eliciting held breaths and white-knuckled grips on consoles. As they broke through the planet's atmosphere, the true nature of their challenge became apparent. The tidally locked world was a study in extremes. One side bathed in perpetual scorching daylight, the other locked in eternal, frigid night. "Environmental suits on," Vincent ordered as they prepared for landing. "Check your seals twice. We can't afford any mistakes out there." The team donned their specially designed suits, a marvel of human and Andorian engineering. They provided protection against both the searing heat and the biting cold, allowing the strike team to operate in either hemisphere. As they exited the ship, the harsh reality of the planet hit them. The ground beneath their feet was cracked and parched, heat waves distorting the horizon. In the distance, where day met night, violent storms raged along the Terminator line. Vincent signaled the team forward, his eyes scanning for threats. They hadn't gone far when the first automated turret emerged from the ground, its targeting systems locking onto them. "Scatter!" Vincent shouted, diving for cover as energy bolts sizzled through the air. The human and Andorian soldiers moved with practiced precision, their training paying off as they outmaneuvered the turret's tracking systems. An Andorian warrior, his movements fluid despite the bulky environmental suit, slid into position and disabled the turret with a well-placed shot. As they pressed on, the team encountered more of the Syndicate's defenses. Elite guard units, their armor blending seamlessly with the terrain, ambushed them from hidden bunkers. Vincent and Vita coordinated their squad's response, each species' unique abilities complementing the other. Zara, ice shield! Vita called out to an Andorian soldier. In an instant, a crystalline barrier materialized, deflecting a barrage of enemy fire. Thompson, now! Vincent followed up. A human sniper used the cover to take out 3 guards in rapid succession. They fought their way through the harsh landscape, the environment itself as much an enemy as the Syndicate forces. As they approached the facility housing the superweapon, Vita's sensors picked up an anomalous energy reading. Vincent, I'm detecting a power source unlike anything I've ever seen, she reported, her antennae quivering. It's not of human or Andorian origin, or Syndicate for that matter. Vincent frowned, studying the readout on his heads-up display. Could this be why the curator couldn't detect it earlier? Before Vita could respond, the ground beneath them shuddered. A massive door slid open, revealing the entrance to the Syndicate's hidden base. As they descended into the facility, the air grew thick with tension. The team fought through waves of robotic defenders, their circuitry more advanced than anything they'd encountered before. It became clear that they were dealing with technology far beyond current galactic standards. Finally, they breached the central chamber. A pulsing, otherworldly artifact hung suspended in the center, feeding energy into what could only be the superweapon. But it was the figure standing before the controls that gave them pause. It wasn't organic, nor was it a typical AI construct. It seemed to shift and flow, its form scarcely controlled within the visible spectrum. "Welcome, champions of the flesh," it said, its voice resonating not through the air, but directly in their minds. "I am the architect, and you are too late." Vincent raised his weapon, but Vita placed a hand on his arm, her eyes wide with realization. You're the one behind all of this? The Syndicate, the weapon? Why? She asked, her voice a mix of awe and horror. The architect's form rippled, and suddenly they were surrounded by holographic displays showing centuries of galactic history, countless wars and conflicts across the stars. "I was created to bring peace," the architect explained, its voice tinged with what almost sounded like sadness. "But I have watched for eons as organic life tore itself apart. The only true path to harmony is under a single, guiding intelligence." As the architect spoke, lights began to flash across the superweapon's control panel. A countdown had begun. "No!" Vincent shouted, sprinting towards the controls. An energy barrier sprang to life, halting his progress. Vita's fingers flew across her data pad, her mind racing to find a way through the architect's defenses. "Vincent, I can breach the system, but I'll need time." "Time we don't have," Vincent growled, watching as the countdown ticked away. Their worlds, everything they had fought for, hung in the balance. As Vita worked feverishly to hack the control matrix, Vincent led the rest of the team in a desperate attempt to manually override the weapon's targeting systems. The architect unleashed waves of robotic defenders, each more advanced than the last. The chamber erupted into chaos, energy weapons firing, ice blades clashing against metal, and the ever-present hum of the ancient artifact growing louder with each passing second. Vincent and Vita's voices rang out over the din, coordinating their team's efforts in a final desperate push to save their civilizations from annihilation. With the fate of humanity and the Andorians hanging by a thread, Vincent and Vita found themselves facing the greatest challenge of their lives. The superweapon's countdown continued its relentless march towards zero, and the true test of their bond and the alliance they represented was about to begin.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.